Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. Scott Luton and Marcia Williams here with you on Supply Chain. Now, welcome to today's live stream. Marcia, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Scott.
We have,
Excited about today's show.
hey, I am too. We got a couple of incredible guests back by popular demand, right? We're meeting the world's demand when it comes to supply chain leadership prowess. But hey, Marcia, big show teed up here today. Folks, raise your hand if you'd just love to unlock new supply chain cost savings and drive profitability increases. Marcia, I think we both would raise our hand for that, right? I think we all would. Hey, today we've got an outstanding panel joining us to share perspective on how leading organizations are taking a supply chain unification approach to do just that, while also gaining heightened real-time visibility that delivers outcomes and solutions, all while affording teams with much better and timely decision making, which all of that and much more rolls up into big time supply chain performance efficiencies and overall performance gains. Sign us up for that. Marcia, should be a great show, huh?
Completely. It's going to be fantastic and we are gonna learn.
That's right. We're going to learn, and we're going to learn actionable insights, folks, so you can take action right when this live stream concludes. So, two quick reminders before we get started. First, let us know what you think. Share your comments throughout this live discussion. We welcome your thoughts. We'll sprinkle them in throughout the live stream. And of course, if you enjoyed today's show, be sure to share it with a friend or your network. Okay, Marcia, we got to get to work. I'm going to bring in our two distinguished panelists here today. Let's introduce Rob Schaefer, Vice President, Strategic Business Development and TMS Sales with Manhattan Associates, and his colleague, Bryant Smith, Director, Product Management with Manhattan. Hey, Rob, how you doing?
I'm great, Scott. How are you?
Welcome back. I'm doing great. And Bryant, to you as well. Welcome back. We got the 1-2 punch back, huh?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Really appreciate the introduction. And we had so much fun last time we did this that we had to come back and do it again.
Hey, love that. Hey, it is Marcia. It's when we can learn and inform and educate, offering market intel and have fun. That's a pretty good hour. Would you agree, Marcia?
100%. Best combination.
Love it. All right. So the combination that wins. So Bryant, Rob, and Marcia, let's do this. A little fun warm-up question, folks, because it is back to school season for so many families, not just in the U.S., but in many countries around the world. There's some serious overlap when it comes to school schedules. Now, back in the day, I remembered, folks, a new Trapper Keeper most years, sometimes a new lunchbox, and sometimes, rarely, a new book bag that made going back to school a little bit easier because, hey, let's be honest, I didn't enjoy that. But I want to ask each of y'all, what's one thing or experience or tradition that you remember about heading back to school? And Rob, I want to start with you.
Probably a lot of things that I could think of, but the first one that pops into my mind is back as a young child in grade school. The tradition in my family was every September my mother and I would take a walk about a mile and a half to a small shoe store, and you always got a new pair of dress shoes to go back to school. And
love it.
That was a good memory for me.
Love it. Supporting local commerce, supporting local retailers. And it sounds like that was quite a yearly tradition, a mile and a half too. Got your steps in too, Rob. Huh?
Yeah, I didn't have a wash, but yeah, I got my steps in.
Love it. Special memory there. All right. So Bryant, same question for you. What's one thing you remember about back to school?
Yeah, there's a couple of memories I have, but the one that's probably the most vivid is, there was a big craze about starter jackets, and I capitalized on the opportunity with my parents to get a starter jacket as part of a back to school type of thing. And,
yes,
taking advantage of the situation, but kind of in hindsight, I'm thinking like, why would I need a starter jacket in basically the heat of the summer? But all logic goes out the window when you're a young kid. So
oh, hey, opportunistic is what I heard there, Brian. Successfully opportunistic, and that's not always a bad thing. All right, so Marcia, we've got Rob's annual tradition to get a new pair of shoes, right, with his mom. Would love that. We got Bryant's getting a new starter jacket, taking advantage of the season. How about you, Marcia?
At that time, when the school year started, my mom used to get a new backpack for me because in those moments we didn't have everything in a digital format. So it was something very helpful, and I like it too, right? So it was very nice to get that.
Hey, special experience, right? Special experience. And if I followed you there, Marcia, coming from humble beginnings, the things you get that one time a year is something you'll always remember, and try to give it, to our kids, right, and to other students. So love that, Marcia, Bryant, and Rob. Hey, we got a bunch of folks. Catherine, Dave, Amanda, Larry. Hey, let us know what y'all thought about back to school. Love it. Like Amanda here. Hey, everyone wants to buy jeans and sweaters for back to school, but here in Georgia, we have to buy the kids about 4 more months worth of summer clothes. True story. True story. It's going to be in the 90s all week this week. But all right, we got to switch gears from back to school back to dominating global supply chain performance. We got some tips for how we can better do that here today. But we want to start with this. Level setting, context, real valuable in an ever faster moving world, if I said that right. Rob, I want to start with you. If you could, in a nutshell, tell us what Manhattan does for the 3 folks out there that may not know, and just a little bit about your background.
Sure. I'll start with my background first. So okay. I've been with Manhattan almost 4 years, 2 months shy of 4 years. I have responsibility for the TMS product from a sales and business development perspective. I started in the software game back in 1998. Went into supply chain software in 2005 and been doing that ever since. So that's kind of a little bit about me. In terms of Manhattan, we are a publicly traded global supply chain software company. We specialize in 3 areas: omni-channel commerce, supply chain planning, and supply chain execution. But we go beyond that in that we implement our own software, and we have a very personal approach to customer service.
Love that. All highly needed as organizations continue to tackle challenges old and new in global supply chain. Good stuff there, Rob. Bryant, if you would, now that we've kind of level set with Manhattan and Rob's background, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so I'm the director of product management for our TMS and logistics functions at Manhattan. So I'm responsible for TMS product strategy and the product roadmap. So I'm working very closely with our customers and our different partners to make sure that we're building the best capabilities that we can within our platform. But prior to my time at Manhattan, I had managed a couple of other TMSs that are in the Magic Quadrant. And before that, I implemented TMSs. So a lot of time in TMS world.
Okay. Outstanding. So to pull a couple of things there from Rob and Bryant's background, Marcia, lots of technology, lots of supply chain, lots of technology, lots of implementation, right? And it sounds like it's not implement and move on. It's implement and stick around for the aftercare that's so critical to make sure organizations get the return they're looking for from these platforms. So love that. Marcia, your thoughts on the panel we've got here, the 1-2 punch.
Very impressive, the guest that we have. And of course, I'm sure we are going to learn. And I loved the point that both talk about planning and execution. So it's not only to stay at that level, it's to actually implement the solution considering the customer. So I love that point.
Well said. Well said. If we're going to talk about supply chain unification, those are 2 important neighbors in the neighborhood. So we'll talk more about that here shortly. All right, really quick aside. Let's see, Larry Klein, back to school. Hey, best for him when he started buying school clothes with his own money. He had a pair of Air Jordan 2 going to 9th grade. Larry, I never had a pair of Air Jordans. Bryant, Rob, and Marcy, I don't know if you did. That was always a bridge too far. So, yeah. All right, let's get into this more here. All right, so folks, today we've got a great esteemed panel between Bryant, Rob, and Marcia. We're going to be diving into our core topic, again, unlocking cost savings with supply chain unification, driving efficiency and profitability, right? Not just more business, but good business. Before we get there, though, Rob, we have got quite the environment that we're all working through. Again, it's a mixture of old, timeless challenges and then some new ones that have come to bear in recent months. If you would, share some of your observations in terms of the current environment in global supply chain and how it's impacting operations and performance.
Yeah, it's a crazy time, and I guess I've been saying that since COVID, right? But I mean, there's always been disruptions in the world, but it appears now they all happen at the same time, right? So, I mean, from geopolitical instability, what we're seeing, in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, I mean, the effect there simply is, rerouting of shipments, right? If you can't go through the Suez Canal, you're going around the Horn of Africa. And if you're doing that, you're adding multiple weeks onto your voyage. Some companies may have to move some more critical things to air, which is increasing their costs. You might have to change ports of arrival, which then changes the rest of your network. So again, if that was the only thing that was happening in the world, yeah, you could manage around it, right? But at the same time, we've got a drought in South America, which is constraining traffic through the Panama Canal. Right. Again, adding costs, adding time, the lead time, the planning that goes around it. We've got labor disruptions or potential labor disruptions around the world, right? In Canada, in Europe, potentially here in the United States. We've got shipping container increases. What I'm seeing is, the price of shipping containers has gone up. Because of the things I just mentioned. They're not quite at COVID levels, right? But they're probably halfway between what they should be in the high water mark there. It's costing more to ship goods from Asia to Europe, from Asia to the United States. And you've got now, steamship lines, charging peak season rates, right? So all kinds of stuff going on. And then if that's not enough to add on top of it, there's a whole regulatory environment, right? Some of that is sustainability, which is not a bad thing. But anytime there's new regulation, you have to plan for it. You probably have to add people to manage it. And obviously that increased costs as well. The other part of regulation is more, there's more and more regulations around where you can source goods from based upon, labor standards and all those sorts of things. And if you're doing business in a country where they're on the naughty list and you have to change your supply chain network, again, we're adding costs, we're adding lead times. There's a big planning challenge around all of that. So unfortunately, all of those things and more are all happening at the exact same time. So there's a lot going on.
Rob, what an outstanding rundown. I think I can officially say bingo because I think you hit a lot of the most important ones that we're all feeling here today. And I just want to, before I move over to Bryant, I want to pull one thing out, this regulatory environment. Folks, supply chain leaders, supply chain pros out there, if you're really challenged with the current regulatory environment, you're not going to like what's coming up because it's only going to, the demands there is only going to get greater and greater. And speaking of, by the way, Reinaldo, you mentioned the Panama Canal. Reinaldo from Panama City is here. Welcome in. And folks, let us know what the rest of y'all think. We got Sylvia and Bill and Steven and many others. Let us know what challenges you're seeing across the global supply chain environment. Bryant, what would you add to quite a list that Rob gave us?
The list can go on and on. I mean, you can go about Ukraine. You can talk about Israel. You can talk about the regulatory things that are happening with sustainability and compliance and making sure that you're capturing the carbon emissions, but also food compliance with FSMA coming up in 2026. It's all these things that are compounding. And I think the summary here is that logistics leaders, supply chain leaders need to understand the macro environment of what's happening within their supply chain, because the reality is things are costing more. It costs more to produce things. It costs more for labor. It costs more for inventory. It costs more for transportation. Everything costs more. So in a world where we need to get to profitability, where we need cost avoidance, you need to understand where those costs are and how to mitigate those costs as best as you can.
Well said, Brian. And we've got some good tips coming up in the second half of today's show. Hey, really quick before I come over and get Marcia's comments, I want to bring in Pravin Kumar. Great to see you here today, who weighs in with longer lead times, higher container costs, and CBAM. And folks, if you don't know what CBAM is, and I'm pretty sure this is what he's referring to, Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. That's right. It's going to be just adding more complexity as we look to make more gains when it comes to sustainability. All right. So Marcia, between Rob and Bryant, and in this case, Pravin Kumar, we've got quite a growing list. Your thoughts there, Marcia?
So true about the changes, right? The context is so dynamic. And the point that Bryant mentioned about the cost that implies a higher cost is so true, because we need to consider when we have a change in regulatory, that will imply R&D costs to find maybe an alternative ingredient, then changes in the packaging. So everything will adapt.
Good stuff. Completely agree, Marcia. And along the lines of what you were talking about, especially when it comes to sourcing challenges, I read earlier today, Rob, Bryant, and Marcia, that a very nice automobile, I'm not going to name them, but their primary aluminum parts provider, one of them at least, went down. And for this particular part and product, they didn't have a secondary and a tertiary backup provider. So we're going to be talking more about visibility, but a supplier visibility into really understanding the risk when this kind of stuff happens, so you can shift gears quickly, no pun intended, is critical. All right, good stuff, Marcia, Bryant, and Rob. Let's shift gears here. We're going to be talking about, again, supply chain unification. It's going to be a big theme throughout. We've already mentioned it a couple times. And Rob, that's part of the good news here. But let's make sure everyone is with us in this conversation. What are we talking about when we say supply chain unification?
Well, it's really about bringing everybody together so that they're all on the same page, right? So we just talked about all the issues that are facing shippers today. Trying to manage that with multiple disparate systems that don't talk to each other and you have silos of information is very, very, very difficult to do. So the unified supply approach brings all of the information that's available together at the fingertips of the people that need to make decisions, right? And it's the shipper, it's the vendor, it's the carrier, it's the trading partners, right? It's that visibility not only to your products in motion, right? But it's there if they are in motion. What products are they? How many are they, right? Is that container full, et cetera? But also the visibility into your products at rest. What DC is it in? Is it in the proper DC? Is it in the proper form? Is it damaged? Can it be shipped? All of those sorts of things to completely understand your entire supply chain availability of product, and to be able to see those disruptions instantaneously and to be able to react to them instantaneously. And while doing so, understanding the financial implications with carrying out a new plan, right? So it's very difficult to do with a bunch of disparate systems that pull all that information together. But it's when it's in a single, logistics platform, it's very much easier to accomplish.
A lot of good stuff there. And one thing to pull out, wouldn't it be nice if everything just took place in a vacuum? It's all static, and it'd be so much easier to make decisions and manage global supply chains. But as I think Bryant and Marcia pointed out, and Rob, you were speaking to, is this is a very dynamic environment, right? And imagine, y'all know it, the scale at what many of these global supply chains operate at, there's tons of complexity. And Rob, to be able to find and empower organizations. Of course, there's more and more proactive preparation and leadership and management taking place. But to your point about being able to react, not just instantaneously, but successfully. And that's a big part of what we need to implement into our organizations as well. So one day we can really call ourselves a term that has been real popular for years, resilience. We'll see if we can get there. All right. So, Marcia, before I move on, that static versus dynamic, being able to not just react in the moment, real time, but successfully. Your comments there, Marcia.
I love a point that Rob mentioned, that all of the factors that we need to consider and also see the impact on the financials. I love that point because they are so related, operations with finance, that I think is, of course, critical to highlight that aspect.
That's right. In this supply chain unification environment that Rob and Bryant will be speaking to, how can we make sure these decisions are integrated with finance so we know in the moment the impact on financials rather than just the impact on operations and taking care of the customer? Good stuff there, Marcia. Okay, so Bryant, I want to bring you in here. You and Rob both are going to speak to several of the ways that for organizations that take and are successful at this supply chain unification that we're talking about here today, there's some big time gains that they can expect. Let's start with the first one, which has been all the rage for quite some time, end-to-end visibility. Tell us more, Bryant.
Yeah, absolutely. And, end-to-end visibility has been a topic for a long time. I think where the benefit comes with a unified supply chain is we're bringing all of those, what would be disparate systems, together into a single platform. So in some of the legacy instances, you may have a vendor that provides you a WMS, maybe even a different vendor that provides you a TMS, and a different vendor that provides you a YMS. And you need to create connections between all those different systems. It's extremely inefficient. You have to pass information back and forth to one another. The connections break. They go through different upgrade cycles. You want to achieve end-to-end visibility, but it's really hard to do that and pull it off when you're dealing with multiple systems. And we've taken a different approach in pulling all of those together into a single platform. And our Manhattan Active platform allows us to support warehouse workflows, transportation workflows, yard workflows, all in a single platform. So there's no integration between those different, let's say, workflows that you've seen. And we have a single source of truth for a shipment. A shipment that's planned in TMS is the exact same shipment that you're receiving into your warehouse or checking in at your yard. So there's no more passing the ball back and forth. What this means is I have enhanced visibility into how I'm executing within my supply chain because I've knocked down the silos of, let's say, those legacy systems. But when you expand it out into bringing in your partners in your ecosystem, you're working with your vendors, you're working with your customers, you're working with your freight forwarders and suppliers and so on and so forth. You need to have the API first mentality to consume that data into the platform so that you can either proactively or reactively deal with the disruptions that we had talked about earlier in the conversation. So it's really the utopia here is breaking down the silos, whether that be systematically or through partners and those types of things. And the unified approach allows us to truly get that end-to-end visibility because we're not dealing with some of the legacy technology problems.
Bryant, preach it louder for folks in the back. You shared so much good news there, and not just optimism, but I'll call it constructive optimism for what is the art of the possible today. And before I get Rob to comment and then Marcia, I want to pull one thing out, that single source of truth. So you're saying it isn't like Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. It can be attained. Is that right, Bryant?
That's correct. It's, again, when you have a TMS and you have a WMS, those are different systems. You create a shipment in TMS and you have to recreate that shipment in WMS, right? That's not the case in a unified platform. It is one shipment. So whether I'm a transportation user and I want to understand what's going on with this shipment, is it in transit? Did it pick up? Is it late? That the warehouse user still gets that same exact insight into that shipment. It's not something that's being passed back and forth or duplicated or copied, right? And again, that gives you better data, faster data, so that you can react or proactively adjust what's going on within your supply chain. Because we had already talked about all the disruptions that's going on. So you have plan A and how you're going to execute your supply chain, but you also need to have plan B and plan C, and having that visibility allows you to do it.
The critical data in the hands of those that need it to make the decisions out on the front lines and really cross the ecosystem. Rob, we're talking end-to-end visibility and so much more on this first one with Bryant. Your thoughts?
Yeah, just really to give a further example of that, right? It's that whole thought where someone in the warehouse, right, can see their inbound shipments from their warehouse system, right? They can see that it's checked in. They can see where it's in the yard. They can make their appointment schedules. They can do the dock door assignment. They can manage their labor based upon what the next trailer is. They can pull the trailer onto the appropriate dock door closest to where that inventory is going to be stored, right? So all of those things would happen in multiple different applications, TMS, YMS, WMS, but when it's a single platform and everyone's looking at the exact same information simultaneously, it makes it so much more efficient and cost effective from a process perspective.
And it builds more trust into the organization. You don't have Sam over here with their spreadsheet and Samantha. I don't know why Sam and Samantha came to mind over here with their spreadsheet. It's all integrated, looking at the same data. We can make aligned, faster, better decisions amongst other things. Marcia, man, Bryant and Rob are painting quite the picture. They're bringing their best Michelangelo here to the discussion here today. Your thoughts, Marcia?
This solution that allows like everyone looking at the same data, I'm thinking that would eliminate all the tracking sheets, because when you get in a company, in many cases, as there's no trust, each person has their own tracking sheet.
Yes.
So I think with this improves efficiency and allows to make decisions better, because all of us have access to that data that is the same data.
Yes, ensuring that everyone in the sandbox, use that analogy Bryant and Rob were referencing, plays nice together to get stuff done and to be prepared to grow when the challenges may be a lot of what today is, and then some brand new ones. Before we circle back to the second one, we've kind of harped on decision making. That's where we're going next with Bryant. I want to bring in T Squared, who holds down the fort for us on YouTube, talks about that with that end-to-end visibility. The players really across the ecosystem need to play fair, right? And I think that ecosystem first thinking is so important to achieve the trust, the operational trust, the enterprise trust, the interfunctional trust, I'll call it, that really allows for exciting new levels of performance for sure. Okay, Bryant, and we got a lot more comments and some questions. Y'all keep them coming. We're going to make sure we pass all of them along to Bryant and Rob, and whatever we can't get to here today, my hunch is that Bryant and Rob would welcome a post live stream discussion. Is that right, Rob and Bryant?
Absolutely.
Okay, that was my hunch. Okay. All right, so Bryant, let's talk about better decision making with holistic data.
Yeah. We had teed up the conversation about visibility, right? The first thing is to get the visibility into the data that's happening within the supply chain. But once you have that visibility, what do you do with it, right? Having data with not being able to action against it is useless. So having the visibility is step one. That allows you to make better decisions in step two. Okay. So whether you're getting data from your transportation workflows, whether you're getting insights from what's actually happening within the four walls of the warehouse, or whether gate in, gate out with the yard workflow, is you're getting all this data. You're getting insight into how you're performing within your supply chain, but getting that information in the most timely fashion is going to lead to better decision making. Okay, so timeliness matters here in terms of decision making, because things happen very quickly within execution. So you need to be able to either proactively adjust to those changes or reactively adjust to those changes depending on the situation. So timeliness matters from a decision-making standpoint, and the timeline is completely condensed when you're in a unified platform, right? Because I'm not going over to this system to find out what's going over here. I'm not going over to this tracking sheet to figure out what's going over here, because the time it takes to gather and synthesize all that data is probably already outdated anyway. So I need information that I can action against right now, right here. But again, since we're not exchanging data between different platforms, different systems, different vendors, we have more accurate data. So that was the second portion. I need timely data and I need accurate data. I can't be working with something that's out of date. I can't be working with something that doesn't tell me the whole truth. I need to know exactly what's going on with this shipment. I need to know exactly what's going on with this order or container or whatever the case may be, so that I can make the right decisions in the moment. Okay. But we have all this data. I don't want it to be a manual workflow. I want the system to do the heavy lifting for me. How can I start doing workflow automation? And once I've determine that something's late? How can I quickly readjust my appointment? If something was a pallet was left off at the warehouse, how can I quickly re-optimize my shipment to make a full truckload? It's having timely data and accurate data that allows us to make better decisions within the supply chain to adjust to those changes that we had talked about.
Love it, Bryant. Before I go to Rob and then Marcia, you're talking about the importance of accurate data, and Marcia had referenced tracking sheets earlier. Jacqueline says, death to tracking sheets. I'm working on a project involving historical shipments over the past 12 months, and my sheet and 3 other people all have different information. She puts in all caps. Been there, done that, Jacqueline, and my heart goes out to you. There's a better way. And Rob and Bryant and Marcia are all speaking to that good news. So, Rob, decision-making, better decision-making, holistic data, your thoughts?
Yeah, it's just not tracking sheets that need to go, right? But all the disparate systems that have their own reporting attached to them, right? If you have a YMS, a WMS, a TMS, and they're all in a labor management system, and they're all from different vendors, and they have their own reporting systems. So try to pull all of that data together and get it in the right format, and not have data integrity issues. Much to what Bryant was saying, by the time you get that report written, it's too late. So yes. Having it all in one place, right, using the same tool, looking at all of that, drives a tremendous amount of efficiency in a very short period of time. And, the sooner you can get the information in your hand, the sooner you can make the proper decision.
Well said. Marcia, before I bring you back in for a quick comment, I want to pick back up. Timeliness matters. Bryant touted it. Rob touted it. Hey, it's like my beloved Atlanta Braves. They have an awful offense. They're trying an awful offense. We don't want that opponent's pitching scouting report after the 7th inning. We need it in time to make the adjustments in the study and be prepared to make the adjustments pregame. Timeliness matters, folks. Marcia, better decision-making, holistic data that is accurate and timely, and then some. Your thoughts?
Yes, I like the point about all the point discussed about the practicality, because initially we say the connection between planning and execution and the customer. And many times, back to Rob's point, we get the question like, when I'm going to get my order? What is the ETA? So now we can address that by looking at the source of truth, right? If I understood correctly. And we have all the data there. And that is a huge gain in efficiency.
And that's the name of the game. That's what we're talking about here today, right? Changing how business is done with all these benefits that Bryant and Rob and Marcia are speaking to. Let's see here. Karakoze is with us here today. He's got a big comment. I just want to focus on his last sentence there. Again, changing how business is done. Kara says it requires an iPhone moment in supply chain tech, right? The willingness to lean into a whole different way of doing things so we can realize the art of the possible and make it easier on our teams to deliver. 99.999% of our team members want to deliver every day. We got to make it easier for them. Okay. So we're talking about the gains folks can get from supply chain unification. We've talked about more visibility with outcomes. We've talked about better decision-making with holistic data. And now let's talk more, Bryant, about really powerfully driving efficiency and profitability. That's a beautiful word. Your thoughts, Bryant?
You got it. Is you need to surface the data first as your visibility, and you need to be able to action against that data that's been surfaced, and then you get outcomes that are more desirable, right? So just thinking about the actions that are taking place, that's one thing, right? It allows you to do certain things,
right?
But what does that mean from an efficiency and a profitability standpoint? The first one being, of course, route optimization, right? Is you need to plan the best routes in your supply chains, because inefficient routes create inefficiencies and costs and so on and so forth. But when disruptions happen, like the Francis Scott Key Bridge collapse in Baltimore, or whatever the case may be, is you need to start creating new routes, new patterns. You need to be using new partners. So having the insight that these things are happening, allowing to react against those changes very quickly and timely, allow you to make better decisions. But that's plan A, right? You may need to reroute something as it's transiting, but that information allows you to proactively adjust your network or reactively adjust your network based on the situation. Another example that comes to mind is, let's say, load building, right?
Okay.
Table stakes for a TMS is basically taking orders, building those orders into shipments, and putting as much product as you can in a trailer so that the trailer is fully utilized. Of course, that brings down the cost, right? The problem is legacy TMSs are using estimated weight and volume to build a truck. They don't know what's actually being loaded in the trailer. In a unified platform, you do, because you're using the actual weight and dimensions and cube of what's being palletized within the warehouse to build and construct these shipments within transportation. So now I'm not overbuilding a trailer where I need to leave pallets behind, and I'm not underbuilding a trailer where I'm shipping air, essentially. So I'm creating better shipments, more utilized trailers to help lower my costs. But we know things change, right? We might not have had the inventory that we thought we did, or the inventory was damaged, or whatever the case may be. So we have a situation where we thought we were going to load everything into a trailer, but we didn't for whatever reason. Now, my planners in real time can understand that I have extra space on this trailer because they have insight into what's going on in the warehouse for that exact shipment. So if I need to throw on an extra pallet, or I need to take a pallet off, all this stuff can be done in real time because I have the visibility and the data to make better decisions. The same thing can be said and extended to labor, right? I mean, we're talking about routes, we're talking about trailers, but I mean, another big cost center for our customers and supply chain partners is labor. Labor is super expensive. Is how do we mitigate some of those costs and be more efficient within our warehouse, within our yard, and so on and so forth? And if we're feeding transit data from TMS or yard, we're educating our warehouse and labor staff when shipments will be there, when they're delayed, and so on and so forth. So we can redirect labor within the warehouse to go potentially load something else, or unload a different trailer, or move staging to another operation. Having that insight of our in what's happening within transportation and within the yard allows us to make better decisions and how we're going to adjust our labor force throughout the day so we can be more efficient. So I'm not paying overtime. I'm not bringing in additional staff.
Right.
I don't have people standing around. I want to maximize not only my inventory, I want to maximize my labor, and I want to maximize my trailer utilization.
Well said, Bryant. Well said. I'll tell you, your last response could produce a whole series of things we can do better in global supply chain. I want to pull on two and then get Rob to comment. As often as we can, eliminating guesstimating in supply chain management is a good rule of thumb. And then secondly, it's inevitable that we hear this phrase, but we want to eliminate it as much as we can. But I thought that insert the blank, right? We need to eliminate that as often as we can and put the real data and the real numbers, the reality in people's hands and in their systems when they need it. Kind of going back to the earlier point. Good stuff there, Bryant. Rob, what would you add? We're talking about different, wide variety of ways. I'd call it holistic ways of driving efficiency and profitability across supply chain using this unified approach. Your thoughts, Rob?
I thought Bryant covered that pretty well.
I did too.
I think the other thing I would add, and it's kind of along that labor part, is that, with the labor market being as it is as well, the platform approach allows shippers to do more with the same, not necessarily less, but to do more with the same, right? When you're driving efficiency in your processes because you see the data and understand how a particular process might be changed or tweaked to become more efficient, then I'm getting more throughput through my system with the same number of employees, right? So that's an area that drives profitability as well.
Excellent point, Rob. And Marcia, before I bring you in here for a second, on the workforce, we've seen no shortage of challenges across all segments of, I'll call it global business, but certainly in supply chain. And here in Gulf and East Coast ports, we may see some more challenges, right? We all are probably familiar with the negotiations or lack thereof that's going on right now with that may impact ports across the Gulf and East Coast. And we're already seeing that uncertainty impact other operations and other ports and other businesses as folks look to hedge their bets. So we'll keep our finger on the pulse of that, but be ready. One thing is assured, more complexity certainly lies ahead. All right, Marcia, we covered a lot of ground. Bryant and Rob covered that last one, I thought, very well. Your thoughts, Marcia, on what we heard there?
Yes, very interesting. The point also about labor, not only transportation or inventory, labor. And I see the importance of having real time data, because without that, it's like we cannot make any changes, we cannot adapt, and we will have the resources regardless of the situation. So
Yes.
I think that point is critical.
Yeah, without that real-time data, and especially here in 2024, we've got one hand behind our back as we look to manage our businesses, our supply chains, you name it. There's so many opportunities to do business a different way. Well said, Marcia. All right, let's see here. So, Bryant, we want to pull one particular example, right? So lots of customers and organizations have really bought into this unified supply chain approach and the benefits we've been talking about over the last 40 minutes or so. But I want to zero it in on one particular example, and that's Schneider Electric, one of the most admired companies, I think, in the world, based on a couple of surveys. Bryant, tell us more.
Yeah, so we've partnered with Schneider Electric. We've had a relationship with them for a number of years now, but obviously they're a global specialist in energy management and automation, and they operate in more than 100 countries. So you can imagine that their supply chain footprint is massive. They have DCs all over the world. They ship basically every mode in a number of different ways. So all the stuff that we've talked about with the global economy, it impacts those types of companies even more because they operate at a global level and not just a regional level. But when we partnered with them, part of their mission was understanding that they have a lot of legacy systems that are not cohesive within their supply chain. And that in of itself is super inefficient. They're not going to get the benefits that we had talked about previously because of the architecture and the network that they had. So, not the only goal that they had, but one of the goals they had was how can we cut down on the number of systems that we have, the number of legacy systems that we have. And of course, the unified approach allows that to be possible. You're not going to have separate TMSs. You're not going to have separate YMSs. You're going to have one platform that does that, but also you're not going to have multiple vendors. You're not going to have a vendor for this region. You're not going to have a vendor for that region. So that in of itself provides a ton of efficiencies, but they want to take it a step further, right? They need to be able to be proactive in how they manage their supply chain, because any little disruption has a major impact to their operations at a global scale. So again, getting the insights that you need to make end-to-end visibility, but also the decision-making to react to those situations. And they've seen in their theory and what they want to achieve is really come into fruition based on some of the platform approach that we've provided in that regard. So they're getting the visibility into their global operations and their shipping network and their DCs, where their inventory is, how they're performing with their suppliers, how they're performing with their customers. They're being more efficient in how they're building and supporting their transportation. They're being more efficient in how they plan their labor. So a lot of different things have come out of it as part of adopting and buying into the unified approach.
Bryant, I love it. And we're going to offer more information on what Bryant describes here in just momentarily. But if I understand the story and this relationship, they like it so much of what the early returns were that they're doubling, or I'll call tripling down. So stay tuned as we share a little bit more detail around that. Now, Rob, if we were to move more generally speaking, and by the way, and we got some great questions. Folks, we got the smartest, savviest supply chain audience across the globe. I see questions from Alan and Karen and many, many others. We're going to try to make those conversations happen after today's live session. Always great to see you, Alan. But Rob, before we go broader with my question to you, and we'll get Marcia to weigh in on what we're hearing here in terms of returns, but I know you're a big music fan, right? You were talking to us pre-show about a recent concert you went to that featured a great lineup of 80s bands, right? It's always, we need more unity, right? More unification in today's environment. There was a great song. It could have been the 80s. It could have been the 90s that said something like, UNITY, UNITY. Does that ring a bell? Anyone? Well, someone will save me. What's that, Marcia? No? Someone is going to save me with that tune from the night. Okay, Amanda recognizes it. Big thanks to Amanda and Catherine behind the scenes. Y'all Google that. Let us know. I was trying to make a musical reference here, Rob, and it did not go well. But anyway, more generally speaking, Rob, tell us what other outcomes that supply chain leaders can take from this supply chain unification approach.
Well, so far we've talked about kind of business process and efficiency and profitability, but there's other things that are benefits of a unified approach, right? And the platform that we provide, a cloud native microservices architecture. So what organizations can also expect beyond business process, right, is that they're always in the latest version of the software. So in the old world, we would develop software and deliver it on an annual basis. The client would have to put together a project to do the implementation. It was disruptive, all those sorts of things. In today's world, every 90 days, they get a feature function update, right? It's delivered, turned off. It's not disruptive at all to the organization. But as we started out the show with all the things that are affecting supply chain around the world, you never know what's around the bend that we may need to innovate to meet. And if we can get it to you in 90 days, that's much better than a year or 18 months, right?
Yes.
There's that benefit. Also, the unified supply chain brings a common user interface. So from a change management perspective, right, you're training people how to use the application and the screens and the navigation and the reporting once, not 4 times across labor, yard, warehouse, and transportation, right? We talked about the better reporting. Integration is much simpler because we're integrating the platform. We're not integrating all these disparate systems to ERP and other sources, right? So at the end of the day, the platform provides the agility for the customer to react to what comes next.
Rob, you shared a lot of good stuff there, but one thing that I heard, especially with the updates, less friction, more seamlessness. And that's certainly one of the things that many organizations are after. The other thing that you implied, that really we've implied a couple times throughout the conversation, is your needs today probably won't be your needs tomorrow. Sure, there'll be some common themes. We've established plenty of those, but this is really about investing into what I'll call, cliche warning maybe, the resilience of organization to tackle what's next around the corner, because disruptions are guaranteed to keep coming. Okay, Rob, Bryant, Marcia, I know I wasn't losing my mind. Big thanks to T Squared and Jacqueline. Yes, Queen Latifah. I knew it. Thank you so much for saving me. UNITY. Rob and Bryant, you're going to have to get Queen Latifah to come speak to the Manhattan Conference. That could be the new theme song. I see a new marketing campaign starting. We'll see if we can make that happen. All right, Marcia, Bryant was talking about specific outcomes, right, with the great folks over at Schneider Electric, which have been setting the globe on fire in terms of success and innovation. Rob spoke about it in broader terms, right? Your thoughts there, Marcia?
We talk about the cost savings that, of course, is fantastic and the way to gain efficiencies. But I also noticed from Rob's comments about speed, right? That capability for companies to act fast, and that has a huge value. So we have an increase, right? We can have an increase in revenues and as well as cost. So both sides, cost down, right? So both sides impacting profitability.
Marcia, I like that. Velocity pays dividends across the organization, especially for customers and suppliers and our teams. And of course, certainly for bottom line financial outcomes. So good stuff there. And some organizations are what I'll call a throwback to an 80s movie somewhere, Rob. You may recognize it. Ludicrous speed, right? Ludicrous speed. And I mean that in a good way, right? We're able to move faster, more successfully. All right, we got some great questions we're not going to be able to get to here today. Really appreciate it from Bill and Alan and Karen and many other comments. Again, we're going to make sure we can help facilitate post live stream discussions here today. But first, we've got a couple resources we want to connect with folks out there and share with folks out there. But before we do, let's make sure our audience knows how to connect with the 1-2 combo. You're kind of, I can't think of a great tandem right now. I didn't want to say peanut butter and jelly. That doesn't really make my point. But you're like Rob and Bryant. You're like Mike Tyson's jab and then the knockout uppercut, right? And Mike Tyson's coming back just in a couple months. Folks are going to find out. All right. So, Bryant, how can folks track you down and connect with you and the Manhattan team?
Yeah, the best way to connect with me is on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there, pretty responsive. So good way to connect. Otherwise, email, phone, website, it's all available.
It's all there. It's all there. Good stuff there, Bryant. And Rob, how can folks track you down, sir?
It would be the exact same way: LinkedIn, email, website, request a meeting. And obviously we have plenty of content while you're there on the website, so feel free to browse.
Plenty. And folks, you might just run into Bryant and Rob at all the must-attend supply chain events out there. I saw you both at, Modex in Atlanta a few months back. And gosh, y'all's booth was filled. I had to kind of throw some elbows to make room. Nah, kidding. But also, Rob, I'm disappointed. You brought down the house with your use of a prop last time, and you didn't bring one today. Next time, folks. Next time. All right, Marcia, what an outstanding conversation here today. Really appreciate you being here. We got a couple resources we want to share, though, right? That Bryant, Rob, and the Manhattan team brought. Let's do that. First up, we talked about Schneider Electric earlier. Right, I got to slow down when I pronounce that name. My Southern English doesn't always work well on that. Schneider Electric, who, by the way, folks, they ranked number one again atop the 2024 Gartner Global Supply Chain Top 25. So they know what they're doing and then some. Well, the company's on the move, as Bryant mentioned, expanding its partnership with Manhattan in over 20 distribution centers and a further 200 plus operational sites. So we're dropping a link to more details on that, and I'm sure Bryant and Rob would welcome any questions around that growing partnership. And then secondly, I think I've got a graphic for this second one. I love this beautiful graphic. Reminds me of pollinating season. You can learn more about the Manhattan Active Supply Chain Technology, which we touched on here today, which allows organizations to think more in terms of inbound versus outbound instead of WMS versus TMS. More of that UNITY right here. Folks, you can download that report. We dropped the link in the chat. And I'll tell you, that as that picture shows, supply chain is a beautiful thing, especially when we get it right for all. All right, so Marcia, what was, out of all the truckload, well cubed out truckload of brilliance that Bryant and Rob brought here today, what was one of your favorite points that we talked about here today, Marcia?
What I love during the conversation is that we always talk about how to implement this. This is real. This is how we do it today, and there's a better solution that can help, right? To have that holistic approach and improve the decisions, to adapt. So I really love the practicality of the points that Rob and Bryant brought up.
I agree with you. I'm a big fan of practical, innovative technology, innovative new practices that will optimize what we're all after, right? And that's more success, right? Take care of our customers and our suppliers and our team members and all that. But apart, Marcia, I echo what you said. 3 letters that you can find in the word practical is ACT. And that's the other point you were making. We got to take action. We got to implement, right? And implementation isn't good enough. We got to follow up and offer that aftercare and that support. And of course, that's really important, as Rob and Bryant laid out, to how Manhattan does business. Good stuff here today. I want to thank folks. Man, y'all came out in the droves, and I really appreciate all the comments. I can't wait to go back and uncover some of the things that I may have missed. I want to thank all of our audience. I want to thank all the folks behind the scenes that helped make today happen. Catherine, Amanda, Deep T, many others. Of course, big thanks to Rob Schaefer with Manhattan. Rob, always a pleasure to have these conversations with you.
Look forward to the next one.
You bet. I do too. Congrats on all the success and innovation you are powering. Bryant Smith, the other half of the dynamic duo. Great to have you back with us here today.
I'm the uppercut in this situation, right? Not the jab. So I just want to make sure that's clear. So thanks for hosting, Scott.
Oh, that devastating uppercut. That's going to be such a great boxing match, I think, in November. Well, welcome. Thanks so much for y'all being back here today and sharing your perspective and expertise with our audience. Marcia Williams, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for your perspective and expertise here today.
Thank you so much. I enjoy it very much.
I agree. And you can check out Marcia's Whiteboard Wisdom, which we have on our YouTube channel. A lot of great lessons learned there. All right, folks, back to taking action, because that's the name of the game, right? Hopefully all have enjoyed this conversation as much as I have, but now you got to take steps. You got to act on the wisdom and the brilliance and the reality that what the picture that Bryant and Rob painted here today, what leading organizations are already doing. Take action. Your team's ready to do business differently, right? Enough with lip service leadership, right? It's all about deeds, not words. On that note, on behalf of the entire team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton challenge you, hey, connect with Bryant, connect with Rob, check out these resources, connect with Marcia, but most importantly, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. We'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.